So who do you think Joseph Gordon-Levitt calls on Father's Day? Because this guy has had some pretty amazing on-screen dads. John Lithgow, Dermot Mulroney, Tony Danza. Hell, even Daniel Day-Lewis played his father in Lincoln.
It's Mama you're scared of. It's not me getting killed.
The reason Joseph has played so many sons is because he's been acting in films and on TV since he was just a little kid. But Joe's star really took off in his teens on that hit series, Third Rock from the Sun.
I'm in command.
Yeah, well, I'm in puberty, pal.
Since then, he's been on an absolute tear, wooing Zooey Deschanel in 500 Days of Summer, weighing up his chances as a young cancer patient in 50-50, and then there's the total mind freak that is Inception, and of course, The Dark Knight Rises.
You should use your full name. I like that name. Robin.
But now Joseph's got a smart film of his own. His feature debut as a writer-director. At its Canadian premiere at the Toronto International Film Festival, it's called Don Jon. It kind of plays off the concept of Don Juan. Now, Joe is the title character at the center of the tale, a bodybuilder, a churchgoer, a womanizer, and oh yeah, a porn addict.
Movies and porno are different, John. They give awards for movies.
They give awards for porn, too.
Hey, please welcome to the program, Joseph Gordon-Levitt!
Thank you.
Welcome. Good to see you. How's things?
Very well, thanks. Thanks, everybody.
Listen, dude, it's a funny movie, and it was funny and also sort of heartbreaking because you can hear the way your characters in the most base way talk to each other about women, and then it forces you to look at yourself in your own language and go, dude, I think we actually speak like that.
Yeah, a little bit, huh? Well, I find that comedies, look, I like the Marx Brothers or funny yuck comedies, but oftentimes my favorite comedies are the ones that make you laugh because they do feel like, oh, I know how that feels. You know, I've like 500 Days of Summer, that's one of my favorite things that I've done, and like, it's like that, you know, it's
With
not
the great
like...
Mark Webb, a wonderful director.
Exactly, yeah.
And so, getting into this role, like, when a guy who's known as an actor says, here's what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna direct a film, I'm gonna make a film, it's important, the first foot you put forward.
Sure.
Why this one?
Well, I think, you know, it's a story sort of about how people sometimes treat each other more like things than like people, and how the media contributes to that. I play a character, and Scarlett Johansson plays a character where, you know, the young man watches too much pornography and the young woman watches too many romantic Hollywood movies.
And they're equally dangerous to a relationship.
That's exactly it, yeah.
Well, and also, it's interesting that you can point themes. You know, themes of sexuality that are in this film, and imagery, pornography. And then, you know, I read your mother's blog, and she tackles it head on with pictures of sexuality and all that, and about how advertisements reach our brains. Did you learn stuff like this from your family when you were growing up?
Sure, yeah. Well, my mom and dad are very much, you know, people who were active in the 60s and 70s in feminist movements as well as civil rights or anti-war movements, and I think they raised my brother and me to have some of those values and to think of women not just as sex objects, even though lots of images in the media are constantly saying that. Certainly not just pornography, perfectly mainstream images.
Here's one that she put up that's so powerful, you know, does the image show only parts of a sexualized person's body, and it's a car on a girl's face, right? And it's a really great, it's a great thing that she did.
Yeah, that's funny. This is, you read my mom's Tumblr.
Look at it, man.
It's really funny.
Because it's smart.
It is smart, you're right.
You know?
You're right.
So when you were growing up, were those sorts of conversations you think that informed this kind of choice?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I remember, like, as a family, we'd always watch basketball. Big Laker fan.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
Yeah, recently it's been a little awkward, you're right. But we stick with them, man, because they're the home team. But so whenever the cheerleaders would come on, my mom, even when I was a kid, when I was like, you know, 4 or 5 or something, watching the Lakers with my brother and dad and mom, my mom would always kind of roll her eyes at the cheerleaders, and not out of any disrespect for the individual young women who are being the cheerleaders, but just the concept of it. And what she would always say is, so, this is what women can do. See what men can do. They're these great, skilled, talented athletes, and the women get to do this. And she would always try to bring that to light and talk to my brother and me about it. And yeah, so she's seen the movie and she really likes it, you know, and I talked to her, I showed her the first draft of the script, and she's really, I think, proud and amused that what I ended up writing my first movie about was these things that I grew up hearing from her.
Could you relate to all the dialogue? You know, your character is so harsh in the beginning, it's hilarious.
Sure. Well, look, I think it's a pretty common thing, for example, for guys to rate women on a scale of 1 to 10.
Her
That's
face
like
is an 8, the rest is a 7.
yeah, right, all that stuff.
But then your buddy going 2s and 3s, man, they're more creative in bed, right?
Yeah, well,
which is awful, but amazing for comedy, right?
It always gets a laugh. Those are some open-minded ladies, 2s and 3s. Yeah, well, I've heard it enough, and I would be lying if I said I never participated in those conversations. Right. I think I probably have less than some, but it is worth making fun of, you know, and that's why I think that it's good to have the movie be a comedy, because I think that movies that are sort of trying to talk about something substantial, it's often best done with comedy, whether it's like Dr. Strangelove talking about nuclear war with this broad farce, or...
And apparently Kubrick didn't even set out to make it a comedy.
What?
Yeah, like initial ideas, they wanted a drama, but then it was just so absurd, it had to be a comedy.
No, I don't believe that.
That's the story, that's the mythology around that.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, like early on when they first commissioned a film about the nuclear war, it was to be scary, but the more research they did, they thought, this is just absurd, the way we approach life, and that it became a comedy. I wasn't there. That's the mythology that surrounds it.
All right. But have you ever seen Failsafe? There's a really great movie. Walter Matthau is the most known actor in it, but it's like Dr. Strangelove, except it's a drama.
Right. Okay.
I always figured they were just sort of spoofing Failsafe.
Maybe, who knows what their intention was.
But I never heard of that before.
Because maybe that's one way we deal with such massive fear.
Sure.
Right, and massive pressure is comedy reaches us in a different way.
I know that I do that, and I've done it in inappropriate times in my life before. I remember I was living in New York when 9/11 happened. I was going to school there, and my first reaction, and I'm almost embarrassed and sort of mortified to say it, my first reaction was, when someone first told me, was to make a joke really quick. Right. And then, you know, the guy, I was going to school at the time. I was actually in class when it happened. And I remember coming out of class and running into this guy that I knew. And he was like, have you heard what happened? Blah, 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 blah. And I just instantly, without thinking about it, made some dumb joke about the Pentagon or whatever. And he looked at me mortified. And I realized, and like, oh God, thousands of people are dead. That's terrible. It's not the time to make a joke. Right. But yeah, I don't know, that's an instinct that we have to use humor to cope or something.
It's funny you brought up the Pentagon, you know. Listen to this radio clip from back in the day. Okay. Listen to this.
Some sources feel this is because the theft charges amount to theft of information, and that a conviction would mean a conviction of the First Amendment. From the federal courthouse, this is Dennis Levitt, Pacifica Radio, Los Angeles.
That is, I totally didn't recognize his voice. That's my dad.
That's your dad.
That was my dad.
Yeah.
I didn't recognize it until the very end, until he said his name.
He was a reporter.
He was a journalist before I was born, yeah. In fact, my mom and dad met at at that radio station, KPFK. It's a public radio station in Los Angeles that does sort of what would, I guess, now be called progressive-oriented news.
It's interesting how all these little things that happened in your childhood are kind of manifesting themselves in you as an artist now.
You're right, you're right. Well, my mom and dad did definitely raise me to want to be a contributor. To, you know, it's not just about what you can get for yourself. How can you somehow play a part in the overall what's going on with the human race?
Stick around. More with Joseph Gordon-Levitt right after this.
All right, coming up, Joseph Gordon-Levitt on a game show, and he looks just like a baby. We'll do it after this.
Program. Joseph Gordon-Levitt is with us. That's him performing. It's super ballsy to do Nirvana any day, but to do Nirvana in Seattle?
Yeah, that was in Seattle. Well, that's why I did it, because we were in Seattle, and I was like, forget. I was about to say a bad word. I don't know. Are you allowed to say that on Canadian TV?
Go for it, man.
I'm just going to play Nirvana in Seattle. See, Canada's cool. Come on, you shouldn't get bothered by a simple, stupid word. Like, come on, really?
Do whatever you want.
Yeah, right?
But, so you're doing a TV show, another one, not like when you're on TV in the early days, but for hitRECord.
Yeah.
So this is a really cool website. I first heard of it and thought it was just music, but it's so much more that happened. Mm-hmm. You've created a space for people to collaborate. Yeah. People who wouldn't otherwise make money and find a way to make money on this.
Yeah.
It's just you and your brother started it?
Yeah, me and my brother started it. We call it an open collaborative production company. Open because anybody can come and contribute. and collaborative. We use the internet, you know, on our site, hitRECord, and to work on our projects together. And it's a production company. We've screened our short films at Sundance and TIFF. Actually, we've screened at TIFF. We've published books and we've put out records, and now we're making a TV show,
which is connected to Participant Media.
That's right.
And those guys make product that's about something.
Yes.
So is there an expectation that it will be about something?
Yes. Yeah. Well, and I think what it's about ultimately, and the ultimate thesis of hitRECord, that's sort of a metaphor. Just the name is like push the button. It comes from. It started when I was younger, and I've been acting since I was a kid, and I quit for a while, and then when I wanted to come back, I couldn't get a job, and I realized I have to take responsibility for my own creativity. I have to be the one to push the button.
Speaking of pushing the button, before or after this moment are you talking about this, where you showed how smart you were?
This Salinger novel
after this.
hates movies, phonies, and his classmate, Ernest Morrow. Joey.
What is Catcher in the Rye?
Oh,
I'm so excited.
Okay, so you were saying?
Yeah.
You were saying? You don't have to address it. You don't have to address it. You were so excited.
Hey, man, it's a good book.
It's a good book. So you were saying? You were saying?
Well, you know, the idea of hitRECord is that we can all be a part of the media. You know, the way that technology has changed is a huge difference for the human experience in general. I think that we're no longer just watching what a small clique of an industry is showing us, that we can all participate in mass media and mass communication. And so hitRECord is sort of me trying to take advantage of that as an artist. I mean, like, okay, well, then let's all make stuff together.
I know your brother's since passed, but he would get a real kick out of this, wouldn't he? Where it's at.
He certainly would, man, and it's a great way that I get to feel connected with him.
Sure.
Because it's something that we started and we had grand dreams for, and so to continue making those dreams happen, like, helps me, you know, cope with his loss.
Of course, of course. Congrats on Don Jon. And you've got another film coming soon down the road, I'm sure?
Not yet, no. Right now, the next thing's hitRECord on TV.
But is there another story you want to tell?
Oh, there's a million stories. There's always a million stories, right?
Come back and talk about them when you're ready.
It's great to see you, man.
You too. Thanks, buddy.
Thanks.
Thanks for Gordon-Levitt, everybody. Don Jon, September the 27th. Make sure you check it out. Joseph Gordon-Levitt. We'll be right back. Thanks.
Very well, thanks. Thanks, everybody.
Listen, dude, it's a funny movie, and it was funny and also sort of heartbreaking because you can hear the way your characters in the most base way talk to each other about women, and then it forces you to look at yourself in your own language and go, dude, I think we actually speak like that.
Yeah, a little bit, huh? Well, I find that comedies...
So who do you think Joseph Gordon-Levitt calls on Father's Day? Because this guy has had some pretty amazing on-screen dads. John Lithgow, Dermot Mulroney, Tony Danza. Hell, even Daniel Day-Lewis played his father in Lincoln.
It's Mama you're scared of. It's not me getting killed.
The reason Joseph has played so many sons is because he's been acting in films and on TV since he was just a little kid. But Joe's star really took off in his teens on that hit series, Third Rock from the Sun.
I'm in command.
Yeah, well, I'm in puberty, pal.
Since then, he's been on an absolute tear, wooing Zooey Deschanel in 500 Days of Summer, weighing up his chances as a young cancer patient in 50-50, and then there's the total mind freak that is Inception, and of course, The Dark Knight Rises.
You should use your full name. I like that name. Robin.
But now Joseph's got a smart film of his own. His feature debut as a writer-director. At its Canadian premiere at the Toronto International Film Festival, it's called Don Jon. It kind of plays off the concept of Don Juan. Now, Joe is the title character at the center of the tale, a bodybuilder, a churchgoer, a womanizer, and oh yeah, a porn addict.
Movies and porno are different, John. They give awards for movies.
They give awards for porn, too.
Hey, please welcome to the program, Joseph Gordon-Levitt! Thank you, man. Welcome. Good to see you. How's it?